Back in 1997, the PlayStation got Fighting Force, a game developed by Core Design and published by Eidos Interactive. Despite getting poor reviews, it actually went on to be one of the best-selling games of that year. Fast forward to 1999, and this time Core were putting out Fighting Force on the Nintendo 64, with the help of Crave Entertainment. Can this game improve on the poor reviews the PS1 version got 2 years earlier? Let's take a look. Now, like many of you watching, a large part of my childhood was spent playing 2D side-scrolling fighting games in the arcades and at home on my Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. There was something that just made them the AAA titles of the time. Just think about your memories playing Battletoads, Double Dragon and Streets of Rage and you'll instantly know what I mean. They were the big games of the time, but as the gaming world moved into the third dimension, suddenly these games couldn't make the transition and we were left with some pretty poor received titles. Fighting Force 64 unfortunately joins this list as yet another one of these games. It's not a terrible game by all accounts, but like those that fell before it, there are some glaring problems with the game which ruin the overall fun experience. The storyline goes something like this. The psychotic Dr. Zeng seemed to be pretty pissed off that the new millennium didn't bring the world to its knees. Remember the millennium bug and all its fears? Well, it's kind of the same thing here. Well, being a mad doctor, he has a horde of evil minions and decides to try to bring the world to an end by himself. The story is pretty basic but does the job. It's the same kind of thing that you'd have found in numerous generic games of the same genre back in the 90s. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this was a wink to the genre's roots. This brings us to the heroes. There's a choice of 4 renegades in which you can try to bring Dr. Zeng to his knees with. Firstly, you have the all-rounder Hawk Mason, there's P.I. Mace, Ben Jackson, who is a brute force character, and the token female Alana, who is Dr. Zeng's illegitimate child. There's no real depth to the characters, and so your choice of character pretty much comes down to what playstyle you like. I always prefer the all-rounders, so I'm going to be playing as Hawk. If you liked your weapons in the Streets of Rage games, then you'll love Fighting Force. Pretty much anything you see in the game apart from the buildings can be picked up as a weapon and used in your fights. The range of weaponry is very good and varied, and learning how to use each weapon takes time to know which situation to best use it. The characters have basic punches and kicks, which are enough to take out the earlier enemies, but later in the game you'll need all the weapons you can find as they tend to inflict more damage. As you work your way through the game, branching paths become available, which is a nice touch, as it does give you reason to go back and play the game once you've beaten it. And trust me, it's quite an easy game to complete, even on medium difficulty. The AI is pretty poor however, and the enemies occasionally become stuck on the scenery or clip it. It doesn't make a huge difference as there's always tons of enemies to plough through, but it does take the shine off the experience. Personally, I think the controls really let the game down. The analog stick works fine for the lighter characters, but at times it feels unresponsive and sluggish, especially when playing with Ben Jackson. What doesn't help is the game's poor frame rate. It's very slow and low, which gives the whole game a floaty feel to it, and performing running kicks or tackles is very difficult given how slow the controls respond. The game doesn't feel comfortable in 3D, even though the graphics are not all that bad and are quite passable. There is also the option of playing the game in 2-player mode, but personally this slows the game down even more. As you play on the same screen, there will be times when you get stuck behind scenery and take a beating from the enemies. The camera is also very poor in either solo or single player mode, and it often positions itself in very poor viewing angles. And finally, the sound in the game is average at best. There are some occasional good tracks, but these are few and far between, and overall it's pretty forgettable. It seems to be quite low quality, no doubt to pack it onto the cart, but when you compare the music from games of the same genre, it really does seem quite low. The sound effects are also quite nice however, and especially the gunshots which sound gritty and powerful, so a thumbs up for that. Overall, I'm sad to say that Fighting Force 64 is a bit of a letdown. I love the genre, but this is not one of the better games and seems to be a little bit of a bad port of the PlayStation version rather than improving the graphics which have moved on in the years since the original PS1 version were released. You will however have fun playing the game. It does get repetitive towards the end, but the branching paths give you a reason to go back and give it a few playthroughs, and some of the boss battles are very memorable. It's also nice to have another 2-player co-op game on the N64, even if at times it has its issues. Fighting Force was released on pretty much every console, so I'd like to know what your favourite version of the game is. Did you play this back in the day? Because I'd love to know your memories and experiences of it, and let's kick off a discussion in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time.